Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Love Your Dogs podcast. This podcast is heart led, experience based, and not dry science. My name is Bre Drake. I am a holistic dog health educator and a certified holistic pet health coach. Thank you guys for coming back. Today, there's something that's kind of been weighing on my heart after getting through, I think this is episode 6 or 7 now. So I wanted to kind of ground us a little bit and speak on the advice I would have given myself back when I was changing things for Skip and Ann. So if I were to bring another puppy into my life, I definitely wouldn't start with fear. I would start with the foundations. I would choose a breeder that values low toxin living, who feeds real food right off of mom's milk, who allows space for thoughtful vaccine decisions, and who respects that a puppy's immune system is something that we nurture and support, not override. I'd use homeopathic support, homeopathic Nosodes, and safe natural exposure to build immunity slowly and intentionally. And I would leave that puppy intact because hormones aren't optional. They are instructional and necessary. I would always feed a species appropriate diet, no shortcuts or convenience. I would make that a priority. But more than anything, I would prioritize movement and sunlight and training and purpose, fresh air, a calm nervous system. Health isn't created, it's supported. It's not created in a vaccine or supplement. It's in the daily life. And I would manage pests manually, keep toxins low in my home, never overbathe, respect their skin and their need for rest. And I would constantly ask myself, is this choice for my dog's long-term resilience, or is it just easier for me? We often project our human needs onto them, and to love a dog well is to honor them for what they are. And they're not fragile. They're not an accessory. I think of them as a wolf with a porch. And let's dive into some of this. So all of that is sort of my holy grail to dog ownership. And I know a lot of us are in a position where we have adult dogs, so you can tweak that as you will to what's going on with your adult dog and what changes need to be made. But for those who are in a position where they're thinking about getting a puppy, about to bring home a puppy, this is all really valuable stuff. So let me kind of peel back some of these layers. So I talked about this a lot in an earlier podcast episode, but there are natural rearing breeders out there. That is the term for them, natural rearing, where they prioritize low toxin living. They feed the parents a raw diet. They don't vaccinate the parents. They don't use conventional meds on the parents. And in the puppies, they start them off on raw food straight off of mom's milk, don't use conventional dewormers, and they send the pup with their new families unvaccinated so that the new families can make those decisions themselves. And instead of doing the puppy vaccines, instead of that puppy vaccine series starting as early as 6 weeks, I would obviously opt for homeopathic Nosodes and safe natural exposure instead. I will link in the show notes where you can find more information on that, but you can go back to, I think it was episode 2, which is a different approach to canine immunity. Hi, Pine. Oh my goodness. He's in his witching hour, so we'll see how this goes. But you can go back to that episode to get more details on this. But basically, after finding that natural rearing breeder, I would make sure that I shipped some parvo and distemper Nosodes to that breeder, along with the supplement Vengeance Motherboard for Pets, and have them start my pup on that probably around 6 weeks. So that way the pup has a couple of weeks to build up that protection and would be ready for me to bring them home. So I would leave the puppy intact. I had a whole episode on that as well. Hormones aren't optional. They're responsible for so many important functions in our dog's body. Removing them is a violation of a dog's bodily integrity, and it's something I never really thought about until I was doing more research into what makes our golden retrievers, or our dogs in general, more prone to cancer. And I discovered a whole rabbit hole on spay and neuter, on conventional spay and neuter. So I would leave any future dog intact. If I had to, for medical reasons, to spay and neuter later down the road, I would cross that bridge when I got to it. But my plan and intention would be to keep that dog intact. I will always feed a species appropriate diet. I've seen firsthand the magic that comes from food and how much food does matter. So no matter what, even if I fell on hard times and had to lean on kibble, to some degree. I would still always incorporate fresh food in a dog's diet. It's extremely important. And I would do whatever it takes to prioritize feeding a fresh diet and make sure that it is sustainable. I'd give up plenty of other things to make that a priority. Touching on this part, I talked about this a lot in my last episode. Movement is extremely important. And if we get one thing right, it needs to be that. This is something I meant to mention in the last episode, that I hear this kind of feedback all the time from people older than me and saying, in the 60s and 70s, our dogs were on farms and outside and running free, and they never got vaccines and they never went to the vet. And so vaccines are killing dogs and the kibble's killing dogs. Well, there's some other important nuance in those comments and those messages, which is, in addition to the uptick in vaccines and uptick in conventional meds and kibble consumption, our dogs aren't on farms anymore. They're not spending most of their time outside. They're not getting a whole lot of exercise. Most of our dogs are working breeds. There are exceptions. Our toy breeds, maybe not so much, but most of our dogs were initially bred with a purpose, to do some kind of work. And now we've made them accessories that can be brought into any home and any lifestyle, and they're just expected to fit that lifestyle. Well, that is another thing that's plaguing our dogs. Sedentary lifestyles in general, and just having to be a part of our modern worlds and not getting that fresh air and that sunshine and that break from our EMF exposure and the toxins inside of our home and the stress inside of our homes. They're not getting that outlet like they should. That's something that's commonly missed. We blame conventional veterinary care, but so much of the lifestyle is on us, and so much of the lifestyle has changed over the decades as well. So we have to keep that in mind. And another previous podcast episode on this topic, I will always put forth any amount of effort necessary to prevent pests naturally at the cost of convenience. I don't ever want to poison my dog. I will instead, because I have the luxury of doing so, I'm home all the time, I will instead manually check him for fleas, manage my yard, get to a point where I'm ahead of this flea situation. But to me, I will go back to natural and manual methods first, always as a first attempt. Try every other avenue, exhaust every other method first before giving my dog a poison every month just because it's convenient. Now, I talked about this a lot in a previous episode, and don't be hard on yourself if you have multiple dogs and you're really busy at work and you just can't get a hold of fleas in your environment and you do have to give a conventional med. Remember to give it seasonally and give it minimally. But that is something we all need to prioritize too. The less toxic burden on their systems, the better. And this line from the beginning, to love a dog well is to honor what they are. And I sort of touched on this. We have to honor the breed. We have to honor what they were made for. And we have to honor the fact that they are animals that are descendants of wild animals, and they should be treated as such. This line that I've been playing around with, a wolf with the porch, I really like that, because critics of the holistic and natural lifestyle, natural rearing of dogs, critics of this mindset will often argue that, well, our wolves and our coyotes in the wild have much shorter lifespans than our domestic dogs. And that is true, but not for reasons that you think. So our wolves and our coyotes have shorter lifespans in the wild, not because of cancer and other chronic illnesses that are plaguing our poor domestic dogs. It's because of man-made issues, man-made interventions. They are getting trapped and killed, shot and killed, getting hit by vehicles, getting hit by cars, climate, habitat loss, and starvation from us, overdeveloping and taking over their world. There's territory fights, and that is because of habitat loss. So territory fights and starvation related to man, habitat loss because of our nonsense. So not because of the fact that they are living in the wild. It is because of man for the most part. So anytime the argument comes up, that's kind of where this wolf with the porch idea came with, is that we are giving them all the best parts of that deal, where we want them to eat species appropriate food. We want to get them to get a lot of time outside. We want them to get breaks from the toxicity and stress of our modern worlds, but we also give them shelter. We protect them from extreme weather. We protect them from situations where they would be hit by a car. We protect them from territorial fights. They've always got food. They don't have to go hungry. So Wolf with the Porch is something that I've really been embracing. We want to let them live as close to the wild as they can. We want them to have activity in their life that is as close to what they were bred for as possible. That's it in a nutshell, guys. This will be a relatively short episode, but it's something that I'm actually recording 2 episodes this week because this has just been laying on my heart. It's something I wanted to talk about and get out because there's a lot of information, a lot of nuance, and I want everybody to understand as much of it as possible. But what it really comes down to is what I talked about in the beginning of this episode, that little list of what we should be prioritizing to have the healthiest dogs possible, to get back as close as possible to what our wild animals are doing or to what our farm dogs were doing before there were millions of dogs in every household in cities and apartments, just living completely different lives than what dogs should be living. So if you are one of those people, I am going to have an episode later down the road, or maybe I'll talk about some stuff now. So if you are someone who lives in a concrete jungle, lives in a high rise, lives in an apartment building, there are some things, and this won't be an extensive list because I'm not really prepared to talk about this. I just wanted to mention a few things. So there are some wonderful products from Green Juju. And from my nutrition and my diet and feeding episode that I don't love that Green Juju uses high pressure pasteurization on their raw formulas, but I do love their line of supplements and I love their veggie blends. But they have recently, within the past year and a half, come out with a supplement line. And there's 3 different supplements derived from different environmental matter. There's leaf, soil, and farm. And these are great for our dogs that don't get a whole lot of time outside, that don't get a lot of time grounding and exposure to soil and organic matter. Getting those supplements, rotating through each one, could be very beneficial to a dog that spends a lot of time outdoors and in a suburban, or city environment. Then there's also, this might sound a little crazy, and I think I read this in the Forever Dog book. This is great for cats in general that live inside, but if you have a balcony or a patio, or even bring it inside your house, could be a little messy. Get some soil, some dirt from somewhere clean, and put it in a pan or a litter box, and let your dog dig in it. Let your cat dig in it, lay in it, get it from different places when you are outside of the city, and bring that to your dog. But the cleaner way is with those supplements from Green Juju. That's a much cleaner way to get your dog exposed to those different probiotics, because from the soil, they're getting a lot of soil-based probiotics that are really beneficial to their gut health and their immune system. But Green Juju has done a good job of putting that in a nice little package for our dogs that spend a lot of time inside. And then try to focus on great indoor games like Find It, training your dog to have a good stay or place, and hiding something of high value in the house in various places. Playing for 15-20 minutes gives them a lot of mental stimulation, some physical activity, puzzles, enrichment, the snuffle mats, the lick mats. All of those things help to give our dogs a little bit more enrichment. Raw meaty bones, of course. I love raw meaty bones, but those usually don't last too long because they eat them pretty quickly. And treadmills. I'm going to try to find some link in the show notes, but I've been seeing a lot of trainers using these treadmills. I guess they're that, just like the conveyor, the belt piece of the treadmill. Maybe it's the treadmills that are being used for putting under a desk to just walk on, that don't have that whole screen and handlebars up front. I've been seeing a lot of trainers putting dogs on these treadmills for exercise. So that is something worth exploring too. They probably fold up, really nicely in a space-saving manner that you could keep in your apartment or your high-rise condo and get your dog some exercise. This is also something great for those who live in frigid cold climates, frigid cold states during the winter time. You can't get outside as much. look into these treadmills. At first, I thought they were a little bizarre, but I'm hoping to get some trainers on that can give us a lot more insight to that. But that's something worth exploring that I've seen. Get creative. You can get the diet right. You can skip all the vaccines. You can keep your dog intact. You can give them the premium filtered water. You can skip flea, tick, and heartworm preventatives. You can skip all of that. But if you're not getting the foundational stuff right, none of that really matters a whole lot. So we really have to bring our dogs back to what dogs were bred for, what they're made for, and that is movement and being outside and having a steady leader who prioritizes them and gives them some structure and some training and some kind of job to do. And that doesn't have to be an official job, just something that mimics what they were bred to do in some way, whatever way is realistic for you. Research your breed and try to do that because that stuff is so important. You can feed the the best diet possible, but it's not going to do anything if your dog is stressed out, living inside, never getting fresh air, and being robbed of what they were made to do. I feel like I'm finishing every single episode like this, but it's so important. The more that I learn, the more that I realize this. And I know clients and family dogs who they have dogs that lived into their late teens that were still fed a kibble diet and vaccinated, but they roamed free and they were likely supplementing their kibble with catching whole prey in the wild, as good as it gets. We obviously can't let most of our dogs roam free anymore, so we have to imitate that as best as we can. So that is what I will leave you with. Again, a very short episode today. To love a dog well is to honor what they are, and I consider them to be a wolf with a porch. Thank you guys for being here and love your dogs.